Welcome to the new series from Performance Works International, Guest Practices. I'm Jeremy Blaine, CEO of Performance Works International, and I'll be running a series of videocasts with special guests who have a story to tell from both business and life experiences. The conversations are designed to explore their journey, uncovering new ideas, innovations, and next practices that we can all learn from and be inspired by. For this episode of Guest Practices, I welcome Paul Hargreaves. Paul is founder and CEO of Cotswold Fayre and is also an advocate for a new brand of leadership for our times. One that moves away from sole focus on the bottom line to how businesses and leaders impact the communities within which they serve and the planet as a whole. In fact, the tremendous success of Cotswold Fayre has been down to creating a great place to work, a business that is focused on changing the world for the better, and that is through how it stocks its products, right through to how it reduces its carbon footprint across the supply chain. The business is also centred around giving back, and Cotswold Fayre and its team has worked with a rural community in Africa for many years. During this episode, we discuss Paul's journey, the need for leaders to be forces for good, helping to create a better world through their purpose-centred businesses. Hello and welcome to this week's Guest Practices episode. I'm happy to welcome Paul Hargreaves, CEO of Cotswold Fayre. Welcome, Paul.
Good to be here, Jeremy.
Well, thanks for joining us. And before we start, and because it's so close to Halloween when we're recording this, of course, I hear you're somewhat of a champion pumpkin grower. So please explain.
Well, very impressed by your research. That's your spies are obviously on the ground. Yes, you're right. We have a local village pumpkin growing competition. First time I've ever grown a pumpkin in my life. So I'm hoping to have the biggest pumpkin. But things haven't actually gone terribly well. It was all going well until I had some tree people round to cut some trees down, and they damaged the plant. So my pumpkin stopped growing and had to be harvested earlier than I expected, which was obviously Halloween. But some other villagers must have taken pity on me, because went away on the holiday and came back, and there was this very, very large pumpkin suddenly growing next to mine. Well, it wasn't really growing. It looked like it'd just been bought from a shop, actually. But anyway, I've now got a moral dilemma, of course. So which one do I actually enter into the competition? But I haven't decided what I'm going to do about that yet.
Oh, come on, just put the biggest one in there, Paul. It's a very community-minded village. They won't mind, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think my body language might give it away, though, if I did that. I'm not very good at lying.
Well, thank you for that insight into your upcoming competition. Let's talk a little bit about the business. You're the CEO and founder of Cotswold Fayre, a business that has exceptional social and environmental credentials. And in fact, you're also the author of this book, Forces for Good, which is advocating for creating a better world through purpose-driven businesses and leaders, which you've really got a passion behind. And I've seen a number of your posts actually on LinkedIn and on Twitter around the subject. So just tell us a little bit about your journey and why you've become such a strong advocate for that as a business leader.
Yes, and some of what I say now is me looking back, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on at the time. But I've got a very strong sense of justice, actually, and this is stuff to do with my childhood. But I've always hated injustice, and that really led to me to work in the inner city for about 13 years, very poor part of southeast London. At the time, I got involved in charity stuff. In effect, to put it in a nutshell, it's all to do with helping people improve their lives in what was a pretty desperate situation. Nearly 70% of single parents, a lot of drug addiction, a lot of crime. In fact, half my street were in and out of Belmarsh prison, which was quite interesting. The biggest criminal actually lived next door, so I always felt slightly safer being immediately next to him, because he tended to burgle the houses a bit further down the road. But it was a tough area. We were trying to make it better for people. which we achieved to some degree, saw some, great results in a way. But it felt like there was a missing part of the jigsaw. Yes, we could help people to a degree, but really for them to carry on with that journey, they needed to be employed by someone that understood their situation. They needed to be given a chance. They needed, obviously, regular income coming in. So when I ran out of money myself, in terms of funding the charitable stuff, and had to start selling some artisan food products to pay the bills, which I did concurrently for a while, but there came a point when we had to either stop or turn it into a proper business. So when we did that in 1999, I was very keen to try and give people a chance through the business and through employing people. And so we actually had, of our first 5 employees, with 60% of them were people who probably wouldn't have got a job elsewhere. There's one guy just come out of a drug rehab place. There was someone else just come out of prison. And there was a third one was an ex-alcoholic, not ex-alcoholic. And so we tried to give those, they were all blokes as it happened, tried to give those 3 a chance through the business.
So from your point of view, what's interesting when I play back what you've told me is that firsthand you saw the gap between businesses operating in a community and a community that needed help and the community itself. And then from you, when you then moved into your business, you really walked the walk as well as talk the talk, and started to, even from the very beginnings then of your business, without even going as far as you are now, very committed to supporting the community then, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. The other guy I was doing it with was also aligned. I don't think I could have done it without him. And yes, that was very, very much part of the DNA of Cotswold Fayre. When we started, we wanted to be a business, a for-profit business, but we also wanted to make some positive difference at the time in people, and we'll come on to the planet a bit later on. But it was very much at the heart of the business. To be perfectly frank with you, we moved away from that. The guy I did it with left for various reasons, and I was left holding the baby on my own. So there was a degree to which I had to, and just from the headspace point of view, and rapidly growing business at that point, going from nothing to a few million in a couple of years, we had to concentrate on the financial sustainability of the business and putting the right things in place in order to fuel the growth. So I, partly to my shame in a way, but I don't quite see how I could have done it differently at the time. You see, at the time, businesses weren't a force for good. The only reason for running a business was to make money, and obviously things have moved on considerably since then. But there wasn't a moral support from others doing it. I didn't have a mentor, and that's a huge mistake. And I'm now very keen to mentor others, because I was a fool in those days not to have someone I could go and talk to. So went away from the DNA of the company, if you like, and for the next 8 years after those initial 2, focused on growing the business and making it in a place where we could then start giving back a bit later, which is what we did. In about 10 years later, we got involved in a children's centre in Kenya through, again, friend of a friend. We went there with my daughter, which was an absolutely life-changing event. I'd never been to a place where people really absolutely had nothing. They had the clothes they stood up in, and that was it, and a small hut to live in. And in fact, the first time I went, after we came back, I actually, obviously people at work were very keen to find out more about the trip. And I actually couldn't talk about it for 2 weeks. I just ended up in a heap of tears on the floor. And the same has happened. I've since been about 10 times. And every time I've taken teams of people with me, the first time they go, this is what happens. And, over the years, we've raised nearly £200,000. started a farm, various other projects out there. And yes, we have done some good there, but I'm almost more pleased with how they've changed us. And a number, maybe, I don't know how many people have come with me over the years, 25 people. And some of them would look back to that time and say they've changed as a result. And that's, it's very condescending view sometimes in the West. We think, oh, yes, let's go and help the developing world. And sure, we can help, but they can also help us in changing our worldview and changing us as people for the better.
Well, that's really interesting, and I would though go back and talk about something you said, that you sort of felt a little bit ashamed of when you moved away from the DNA. I would argue that the stronger your business base, and then that focus that you did, it actually gives you even more opportunity to help out there, and you probably wouldn't have been able to do all of that later on, Paul. So and it's great that you personally have had this sort of epiphany when you've been out there to the communities that you've supported along that as your people. And if we fast forward then through the business to where you are now, and this commitment really is at the heart of Cotswold Fayre, and it's at the heart of it becoming a certified B Corp business. So could you explain what that is, how you did it, and the benefits for other leaders and businesses that perhaps haven't even heard of that yet?
Yeah, so I hadn't heard of B Corp in 2014. Actually, one of our customers, Cook, the frozen food company, Ed, who's the founder of that, is a mate of mine, and he'd been to the States and came back and said, "Paul, you've got to find out more about B Corp." I said, "B Corp? What's that? It sounds a bit American. I'm not sure I'm into that." No, Ed, we're very British, Anyway, so but the name was a bit of a barrier, and it has been, to be honest with you. Now it's a bit more well known, less so. But so I started looking into it, and honestly, for me, you see, for all those years, I had this kind of idea that business could be probably better than charities at making the world a better place. And it was so amazing to find out actually I'm not alone. There's suddenly all these other companies, and many of them doing far, far more than we've ever done. And I thought, wow, wish I'd found these people earlier. And that's what I'm saying about those kind of 8 years. I wish we had found them people, because it would have changed those 8 years. Yes, I agree with you. We had to build up as well. But I think in terms of the culture of people being united around a purpose that isn't just about making money would have done us a huge amount of good in those days that we kind of missed out on, and that's certainly happened now. So we were fortunate, UK based, to launch from, and we were one of the companies that's on the edge of certifying. I did get some help to get over the line. So they launched with about 50 companies in 2015. So what are B Corps? Well, they're companies that are committed to three things. One is changing their articles of association. So the legal framework of a company is changed. It's moved from just being there for the shareholders to being there for all stakeholders. So that includes people that work for you, people in the local community, people all over the world, actually, supply chain, and of course the planet and the environmental piece. So that's number one. Number two, they agree to be certified on a regular basis. It used to be every 2 years, it's now 3. Of basically measuring how good you are for the world. So being a B Corp isn't like CSR. It's not saying, oh yeah, we're doing a little bit of good over there, so that's all right. And then carry on. We're doing the main thing, making money most of the time. No, it totally changes the culture of the business. So you have to, anything you say in the B Corp certification, you have to prove. So we're just recertifying at the moment, actually. I think our team has produced, about 187 pieces of evidence to kind of prove what we're doing, which is quite onerous. It gets a bit easier each time you've done it. But and the best thing about the recertification process is it gets more difficult each time you do it. So the bar's getting higher. In fact, we became a B Corp in 2015. 2017, we recertified. And we've done loads in those 2 years. We've got a flavour for it now. basically nicked lots of good ideas from other B Corp companies. So we recertified. I thought, brilliant, get a much bigger score, 84 again. I actually rang the office in Philadelphia and said, I think there's something wrong with the assessment because we've done this and this, and we've only got 84 points. And they said, oh, don't you know, it gets harder each time you do it. So that, obviously a bit of a shock at the time, but now obviously massive benefit because that forces positive change moving forward. So that's number two, the certification. The third thing you've got to do is produce an impact report each financial year. So it's like an end of year report, but obviously you say in there what you've done for people, what you've done for the planet. And I mean, this one here, which is ours from this last year, that that was one of the proudest. Now I'm going to get emotional now. And that was one of the proudest moments, I think, when I got this from the first, when it came off the printers. Because looking through here, I thought, wow, actually most things in here are nothing to do with me. So initially, it was all driven by me. I believed in this stuff. I was going to make it happen. It's kind of very, very hierarchical form of leadership. These days, because the culture has completely changed, and this is imbibed within the business and in all the DNA of the business. Most stuff these days that happens that's good is to do with other people, and that for me was such a affirmation that was it happened. We'd kind of got there after 5 years of being a B Corp. So yeah, really, really proud of what we're doing. Obviously, we can always do so much more, but we're doing a lot more now than we were, and obviously plan to do a lot more in the future.
Well, that journey that you've just described clearly is at the heart of your passion. You can hear the empathy for the communities that you serve come through, how it is driving you within the business, and why you've gone down this road. So how can you convince other leaders that this is the way to go down? What are the benefits that they can expect by stepping into this and starting to consider becoming a B Corp business?
Well, I think that question's a lot easier to answer after the pandemic because more and more people are realizing that capitalism as we knew it is dead. All the pillars of capitalism that have existed over the years have gradually disappeared, starting with the financial crisis in 2008, climate change last year, and this year obviously has been all about equality. And people are sick and tired of capitalism making the world worse rather than making it better. So it's a much easier conversation to have now. And in fact, the number, as a B Corp ambassador, the number of emails I get is ridiculous compared to even 6 months ago. Probably 2 a day of people saying, actually, we need to do this. We need to change the business model. We can't carry on as we've been going, emails like that. So I think businesses that are only there for profit will decrease. Good people don't really want to work for businesses that are making rich people even richer than they are already. And they want to work for a business that is making a difference in the world. That's why we find it easy to recruit very good people. And sometimes they could get much more salary elsewhere, but they want to work for a company like ours or like Cook or like Ella's Kitchen, just to name a couple of others, that are obviously making a positive difference in the world. And I think companies like that, and there is evidence to back this up actually in terms of B Corp's growth compared to non-B Corp's growth over the 5 years it's been in the UK. There's some more data being compiled at the moment to say they're actually growing exponentially compared to how the general economy is growing. So it's not, it's one of those paradoxes. If you focus on benefiting people and planet, actually, there's a good chance you'll make more profit as well. Now, obviously, we'll do that because we just want to make more profit, and that's really what no, that doesn't work. It's got to be in the DNA. And if you look out to the world, and if you look to make it a great place to work, and people are really fulfilled and happy being it's not really rocket science to work out they're going to be the more successful, more profitable companies, is it?
I'd have to agree with you. And having done some research around emerging leadership trends, workforce shifts, and so on, employer branding is becoming so important these days in terms of where talent is turning to, particularly Generation Z coming into the workplace and increasingly millennials. Not just from a permanent perspective, but of course the growing independent workforce that is out there. And that is touted to be around 50% of our available workforce within 2 years. So, traditional businesses have a number of things that they have to play in. But, if this is a core component of attracting the right talent to the business, but also drives the growth, then it's a double whammy. But I'm really interested, actually, based on some of your specific answers, how it's affecting you emotionally, Paul, as well. Is you've got to really buy into this. So, what have you found as a leader that can help other leaders who have perhaps not gone down this road yet in terms of bringing more compassion and empathy into your leadership role into your business? What's that done for you?
In a nutshell, and actually the best way of explaining this is a Japanese philosophy called Ikigai, which means fulfillment and happiness. So I am so much more fulfilled and happy than I ever was before. Ikigai comes from the island of Okinawa, which you might know that more people live to be over 100 there than anywhere else in the world. So we should listen to them. They've got something right, and it's not just the diet. So they have this philosophy called Ikigai, which is if you're doing these 4 things, concurrently in what you do, you will be at peak fulfillment and happiness. So number 1, doing something you love. Hopefully you can see my passion coming through. Number 2, doing something you're good at. If you can it's like a huge Venn diagram, if you like, with the intersection in the middle. So the first circle is doing what you love, what you're good at. Number 3, getting paid for it. Yeah, we need to pay the mortgage, same as anyone else. And number 4, which is the one that a lot of people miss out on, is doing something the world needs. And if in your work and your daily life, your work life and personal life, I think this applies to both, if you're doing those 4 things, then people are happier and more fulfilled. And my aim as a leader is to, if everyone who works for us is happy and fulfilled, then that's my job done. And actually, every year we do an employee survey, and one of the questions on there, there's more detail than this. They're not all yes, no answers. So one of the questions on there is, do you enjoy coming to work? Yes, no. First year we did it, 100% yes. It was 97 last time, actually. So there's one person who said no. Haven't found out who they were, of course, because it's anonymous. But if you've got a company where 90+% of your people enjoy being there, it massively transforms what you're doing. You see, in our head, in our kind of Western psyche, we split stuff up. So we have our work life, and then we have the rest of the life that we enjoy. So, what do you talk about? Oh, it's holidays and weekends. If you can bring enjoyment into the whole life, not just the weekends and holidays, clearly people are going to be happier. And if they're happier, they'll be more productive and they'll do more work and you'll make more profits. It really isn't that difficult. Yet, what is it that holds people back from that, I wonder, as leaders? I think it's often fear. It's this, if we give away, we might get abused somehow, they might get taken advantage of. But actually, no, if you give away, you always get back. All the religions of the world have that principle somewhere in them, karma or whatever you want to call it. By giving away, you get back. That's true of life in general, and it works in business. If you give away to people, if you give away to the local community, if you give away to the planet and make it a better place to live, you'll get it back in spades.
Kind of karma as well as ikigai, right?
Yeah, got my 2 philosophies mixed up there a bit.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It is. And, most religions end up coming back to this kind of stuff, actually.
Well, the first thing that you said within that is something that we should be uses a word that we should use more of in business, which is the word love. Do what you love. That's where the passion comes from. That's where increasingly, as we're starting to talk more about human-centered leadership, community-centered leadership, that's getting there. And doing what you're good at. Yes, we need to be paid. I take that point that you're doing, and we all do. But the other point that you made, the third point, I think it was, in terms of doing something that the world needs at the core of purpose, moving away from that traditional vision mission into purpose. And you become happy and more fulfilled as a business, as a leader, as individuals, the communities that you impact, of course, as well. And that then gives you the relationship between if you like, the employee satisfaction, I'm sure the community satisfaction, being satisfied as an employee, as a customer, let's say, is not good enough anymore.
No.
You need to be highly satisfied. Yeah. That's what drives loyalty, whether to the business, to the community, or to the company, right?
And I'm pleased you brought the word love into it, because I love the fact that love is a word you can use in business these days. I mean, even 5 years ago, they would think you were a raving hippie if you use words like love and compassion in a business setting. And that's things are moving massively. You mentioned emotions a minute ago. We have meetings and there's people crying in a business meeting. We did an environmental conference actually last year, and I'm going to struggle to talk about this without crying myself, because it was an incredibly moving experience. We're talking about planet degradation and obviously what we could do about it as food and drink. These were mainly for our suppliers, food and drink producers. And at the end of the day, I mean, connecting climate change to people dying, I'm sorry to get a bit blunt here, but what we do here is actually killing people in Bangladesh and low-lying parts of the world. And even in our projects that we've got farm in Kenya, I've seen the impact of climate change there. When I first started going 10 years ago, they used to tell me when the rains were coming. And they were right every year, within a week or two. Not anymore. It's either flooding or it's drought. It's totally screwed up the farming. So we were talking about this stuff in the conference, and by the end of the afternoon, half the room were crying. And for me, when people connect at that level, that's when change happens. It's a lot of people doing good stuff in business, and it's done from intention. But when people are engaging on an emotional level, that's when the real drive and passion comes through. And apologies, I'm getting emotional, but I've seen it happen for me. So just to go back, B Corp assessment, we were always very good on the people side, not quite so good on the environmental side. And we are now we get much more points in the environmental side. The reason for that is I was at an event in 2018. Yes, 2018, Chamber of Commerce. And I put a slide up on the screen of some people have been flooded out of their homes, basically. And I was talking about the stuff in the book, people, planet, profit, all the stuff we've talked about just now. But I put up I was talking about the planet side and climate change and stuff, and I put this slide up and I just started weeping on the stage, which is a bit embarrassing when you're being paid to talk and can't actually talk because you're crying. It's not what they came to hear, really. But that was, and actually I used that slide again. It was fatal because every time I had to stop using it in the end. But that for me is when I connected emotionally with the climate change issue. And as a result, I know that as a company, we have driven hard, much harder on that as a result. And obviously that passes on to other people in the company. And people are probably more passionate in Cotswold Fayre about that than anything else at the moment. But it comes from that connection with our emotions. And how sad is it that for years business people left their emotions at home when they went to work, and how good it is that that's not really, well, it is happening in some places, I know, but generally it's not really happening as much anymore. So, yeah.
Well, I have to say it is refreshing to hear a successful business leader who is so in touch with their own emotions and really the communities within which they serve, the society that they impact, the world that we live in. It goes beyond authenticity, Paul. It demonstrates a real courage to show that vulnerability at the same time of calling for action. I think it's such a strong message. Thanks for being so open about that. And yeah, I see you as a role model in terms of being a new breed of CEO. And I'm really interested of what you would say are the 2 or 3 key pieces of advice that you would give, let's say, to other business leaders who perhaps aren't as progressive in their thought process or as actions as you, or even aware as you, but who are starting to recognize the need for change in our times, not just at company level, but community, society, planet. What are your 2 or 3 pieces of advice?
Well, I think number one would be, if you don't do this stuff, you'll get left behind. And that's a growing sense in the business community. Even with FTSE 100 CEOs, a lot of them know now, unless they change the way they're doing it, they're not going to be here. That's number one. Number two, for your own, I mean, back to Ikigai, really, that's true for the people that work for you. It's also true for you. If you're a leader that isn't just about, there's a lot of leaders around who are very good at what they do. They're getting paid huge amounts. That's 2 out of 4 of the Ikigai. How about getting back to what you love? And how about doing something for the world? Personally, you will be much happier and more fulfilled. And that can make a huge, that will then be contagious throughout your organization. And number 3, this is a lesson I've learnt throughout business, and the biggest mistakes I've ever made was when I haven't done this, is a lot of people know now what the right thing is to do in their heart of hearts. Yet, as we come out of the pandemic, there'll be a lot of people saying, actually, you can't do that. You need to go back to doing it this way. This is what we planned 2 years ago. Let's get back to the plan. Let's get back to normal, or the new normal. Both words I've got sick of by now. But no, if we're going to drive change here, it's got to be exponential change. It's too late for it to just pootle on and do a bit of CSR. And many people know in their gut what they should be doing, but will have other people persuading them away from that. So remember what you were feeling in the depth of the pandemic and do that. It's probably going to be the right thing to do.
Yeah, in fact, many leaders have had a taste of doing something different, a taste of more empathetic leadership, impact on people's wellness, well-being, community, all of those things. And I think it is raising those questions about, am I doing, for some people, about, am I doing what I love? Am I doing something for the world? Because we're seeing every day that that's happening. I saw in the news yesterday about the big potential methane gas release now north of Siberia in the Arctic due to climate change, which is frightening. So we this is a must do, not a nice to do anymore. And I agree with you. We don't want to go back to what we did. We want to look forward to possibilities of doing something different.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I do think it will get more polarized as well. I think there will be. There was a lot of polarization in the early days of the pandemic, with some companies behaving fantastically well and going well and beyond they want to do, and other companies actually behaving appallingly. I think there'll be a lot more of that. In fact, I heard a friend of mine as a speaker in the kind of wellness, well-being space, and this was after the first wave when we were being encouraged to go back to the office. Changed again now, and he'd been invited to a gig which got cancelled, and the CEO, he was going to be speaking to the company, said, "Oh, it's all right. We don't need well-being anymore. We're out of the worst of it." No, that is the wrong way of behaving, folks. Your people need well-being, whether we're in a pandemic or not.
Well, okay, I'm going to, it's perhaps this is a little bit unfair, Paul, but really as a final question, I want to just talk about your people. And if I were to go and ask some of your people in the business why they're committed to you as a leader personally, but also Cotswold Fayre as being a certified B Corp business, what would they say? What would they say to me?
I've got no idea, but yeah, people like working for me. Why is that? I think probably you've mentioned it actually, the vulnerability. I think they like the fact that I'm a leader who connects with them. I'm a normal person. I'm very happy to admit that I make mistakes. I mean, that's a big one, isn't it? A lot of leaders in the past have been almost invincible. Those days are gone. It's okay these days to say, actually, I don't know. I haven't got a clue what's going on, but I know this, that, and your values. So they're probably the things. I mean, I don't, as you can probably tell from this, that there are times when I cry in our meetings, which is okay. If I was doing it every meeting, it could be a problem. But I think people like seeing a leader who has got emotions and is human, rather than this kind of semi-god, which some of them have tried to be in the past.
Well, as you've been talking, I've written the list, and like most things, whether we're talking about the climate change, whether we're talking about business transformation, whether we're talking about digital, all of these huge transformations and need for change come down really to a human heart and a human endeavor. You've talked about, there's a few words that I've written down which are really key: vulnerability and demonstrating vulnerability, being in touch with the emotional side, because then that drives a more empathetic style of leadership. It also drives this authenticity as well. I think they know what they're getting with you, and that leads to the almost kind of leaving your pride or the ego at the door and saying, you know what, I'm not going to get it right all the time. Give me some feedback and let's learn from the mistakes together, and let's live our values as an organization. I think these are really great messages to end on, Paul. And I would thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for being so open within this conversation. I really believe that this will give a lot of our viewers big food for thought, not just in terms of thinking about what they might do, but leading to clear, positive action. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining our Guest Practices videocast. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel through the link below, or check out our website to access more in our current series of expert interviews.